Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and the very final part, I promise, of this experiment where we're seeing how long it would take a tier 22 team to win either the Premier League or the Champions League. Win anything major at this point would be perfectly fine by me. We're already into the year 2090. We're going to go forward at least another 10 years. If not longer, and hope that they finally do win this Premier League. You can see they are on an upward trajectory, which is why I'm doing this one more part, because I think they will actually get there. If you were to put a straight line through that, it is going to hit the top, and I think it could happen in the next 5 or 6 years. So I'm going to keep giving them £1 billion every single season until they do win something big, and that's where we're going to go today. Now, before we do go ahead, today's video is sponsored by the OneFootball app. They've been kind enough to sponsor 10 videos, so there'll be a few more to come. They have got a brilliant app, as you will have seen in previous episodes, so do hit the download link down below, and then you can get all the latest football news for the new season as it happens in real time, and you can follow your favourite clubs. It is an app I use myself, so make sure you do download it, and it's completely free, so do hit that download button in the description. But what we're going to do now is go ahead of time. If you want to catch up on where we are, do watch the last episode first. But let's go straight forward. We'll see how Fair Warp are doing, if they've won anything major, and also we'll take a look at the Premier League, Champions League, and who's been winning those over the last 100 years. Well, we are now 10 years into the future, or 11 years into the future. And what we're going to do is go through these seasons one at a time and just see how they've managed to do. I'm not going to go any further ahead. This took 2 days just to do 10 years. And that's only with the Premier League and Championship loaded. That's how much data is now backed up in this save. I have no idea how people go 1,000 years into the future on this game. My laptop could not handle it. But you can see they started off in the Europa League qualifying rounds, managed to get through that into the fourth qualifying rounds, going strong in the Carabao Cup as well, through in the fourth round of that, and doing well in their Europa League group as well. A few league defeats won't have helped. But you can see knocked out the Carabao Cup quarter-final 2-0 by West Ham. And then in the FA Cup, they did get through in the third round, drew in the fourth round and knocked out in the replay by Villa. But beat Dynamo Kiev in the Europa League first knockout and second leg. Lost to Middlesbrough in the first leg there at home as well, and in the return leg drew 2-2, but annoyingly beat them 2-1 in the Premier League, so knocked out the Europa League. And in their Premier League campaign they actually didn't do that well, way too many defeats in there, and it meant that they ended up finishing in fourth place, some 20 points off the title, so still a long way to go there. If we go forward to the next season, you can see there's a testimonial there for a Sanchez. But they're in the Champions League after finishing fourth, doing alright in the league, a defeat to Spurs, and doing okay in the Champions League as well. Knocked out the Carabao Cup though. I think they got through in the Champions League there. A lot of wins in the Premier League. Were knocked out the FA Cup, but it meant they could carry on focusing on the league. Now they lost to Juventus in the first knockout round, first leg, but beat United 3-1, beat Middlesbrough 4-0, and then beat Juventus 3-1 to get into the quarter-finals of the Champions League. Still going strong in the league as well. Beat Zenit 1-0 at home. In the return leg, won 3-1, so they're into the Champions League semi-finals for the first time. And they did beat Barcelona 1-0 at the Nou Camp in the semi-final, and in the second leg they drew 1-1, so they are into the Champions League final, and they're doing well in the Premier League as well. This could be the first season. And when we get to that final, they're beaten 2-1 by Liverpool, no less. Liverpool are the team that have denied them an 82nd minute winner there for them, preventing Fair Warp from winning the league. But if we go forward and look at the next season, you can see they did win the Premier League, 1 point clear of Spurs. 5 goals in it in the end, but 1 point clear at the top. Liverpool 4 points back, but did finish as European champions, denying Fair Warp the Champions League title. But you can see right at the end they did let their league lead slip away against City or both cities, Manchester City and Swansea City. But ultimately, that poor run of form from that Barcelona second leg cost them in the Champions League final, and they missed out on European and Premier League glory. Both would have been for the first time, but they are finally, in the year 2092, champions of England. They've come from the 22nd tier all the way up to league champions of all of England. That is quite an achievement to have managed. But we've still got another 10 years to go. So the question now is, can they win the Europa League, or not the Europa League, the Champions League? And you can see Champions League campaign getting off reasonably well. They did win the Community Shield, getting through their group, pretty sure of that, doing very well in the league as well. Through in the Carabao Cup quarter-finals, and did they get through there in the semi-finals? I'm pretty sure they just won on penalties there. So they should be in the Carabao Cup final. They beat Leverkusen 2-1 away, and then lost 5-0 to Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final. That is some fall from grace. And in the Champions League, knocked out 3-1 by Leverkusen. Poor run of form, really. And it did mean they did fail to win the league that year. If we go forward, you can see they finished all the way down in 7th place, from league champions to 7th place, and Liverpool taking the title that year. Now, the following season, you can see they lost to Liverpool again 4-1 in the Community Shield. Did they win the FA Cup that season? Is that how they got there? Yeah, they did win the FA Cup. I missed that. They beat Liverpool, actually, 3-2 to win the FA Cup. I nearly missed that, but you can see there they did get a 3-1 lead. Liverpool pegged them back again, but it wasn't enough. Most of the action taking place just before and after half-time. But the following season, they did lose in the Community Shield. Champions or Europa League group doing reasonably well. Managed to get through. Carabao Cup quarter-final, won there. Through in the FA Cup third round, doing okay against Middlesbrough, and then through to the final of another Carabao Cup. And then PSV, they beat 3-2 away from home, and 4-0 at home. Carabao Cup final, lost 2-1 to Newcastle, who've had an unprecedented period of success. An 89th minute winner there in the final for Newcastle, but through in the Europa League to the quarterfinals, beat Celta Vigo, and then 2-0 at home as well, put them into the semis. 2-0 over Sporting, 1-1 away, so a Europa League final at least, and they have won it 1-0 against Middlesbrough there, an 82-minute winner. Very dramatic, some of these finals, and against similar teams. Middlesbrough they've played before recently as well. But Liverpool seem to be their arch rivals at the moment, and actually lost in the league 3-2 to them. And if we go forward another season, you can see they finished 6th that year. Liverpool winning with 101 points that season. Liverpool, the team to beat, no doubt about that. But the following season, they did beat them 3-2 in the UEFA Super Cup. So another trophy in their cabinet there. And that meant that Liverpool were European champions for another season. But their season kicking off beautifully. Look at all these wins, including in the Champions League. Lost to United and Napoli, but through in the Carabao Cup quarter-final, semi-final, doing okay there, 3-1 win and 2-0 away from home. Puts them in the Carabao Cup final. Out of the FA Cup, lost in the league as well, but 2-1 over Monaco in the Champions League, lost 3-1 to Liverpool. This is an extreme rivalry now. They have been beaten there, but in the Champions League, they went out on penalties to Monaco. Disappointment there, I think. Or did they go through? No, they definitely went out. And in the Premier League, the question is, have they been able to overturn Liverpool for another season? And as you can see, they did manage to do it, beating Liverpool by 5 points to the title there. So that's the UEFA Super League and the Premier League title that have managed to take from Liverpool, although they did lose out in the Carabao Cup final. A real dramatic rivalry between the clubs has developed, and you can see they lost the Community Shield 4-1 the next season as well, so it really is end-to-end stuff between these clubs. Beautiful start to the season again though. One defeat in the Champions League group stage, but doing well overall. Out of the Carabao Cup quarter-final this time. Doing well in the FA Cup, beat Napoli in the first leg of their Champions League campaign and in the second as well. Out of the FA Cup, lost 1-0 to Liverpool at home in the Champions League knockout stages, 3 minutes into that game. And in the return leg, a 1-1 draw sends them out despite an 84th minute goal. They couldn't find the second that would have taken them through, and so they miss out on another opportunity at the Champions League there. Liverpool, really their arch nemesis at this point. They didn't win the league that year. We will just double check, but I'm pretty sure they didn't win it. Instead, it was Liverpool who took the title by just 4 points over Fairwarp. This is one of the most intense rivalries I've seen naturally develop in this game. But you can see the following season did kick off brilliantly. One defeat on the opening day, actually. Van Dijk had a testimonial, not the Van Dijk. But a beautiful start to the season. And then they lost to West Ham. But still, this is a pretty poor patch of form. But they're in the Carabao Cup semi-finals, beat Liverpool 2-1, beat Liverpool in the FA Cup as well, drew them in the league. In the return Carabao Cup leg, they did manage to go through to another final, through in the fourth round the FA Cup and the fifth round, lost to Real Madrid 1-0 away in the Champions League, lost the Carabao Cup to Newcastle, and then in the Champions League were knocked out by Real Madrid. So disappointing season, still going to the FA Cup though, and they did win 2-0 there at the end to get another trophy in the cabinet, this time against West Ham. The rivalry with Liverpool dying down a little bit this season. If we go forward another year, Spurs actually took the title on goal difference from Liverpool, a very low points total that season. But Fair Warp 4 points off the title, which is their standard yardstick for how far they miss it. Now the following season, we're into the 97-98 season, they lost the Community Shield and then lost to Liverpool on the opening day. 3 defeats in their first 4 games of the season. But Champions League, not doing too badly there, out of the Carabao Cup, but through in the Champions League, I'm sure of that. Through in the FA Cup as well, nice little unbeaten run here. Beat Valencia 4-1 in the Champions League, and in the return leg 4-0, 8-1 on aggregate there. Through in the FA Cup quarter-final, 3-2 against PSG in the quarter-finals of the Champions League, and then lost 2-0 away to get knocked out. But they did win another FA Cup title. Sal Fabra seems to be getting quite a few goals. Disappointment there against PSG. Man sent off 3 minutes in, will not have helped them. And in the 97-98 season, it was Liverpool who took the title. They barely got Champions League football that season, but actually weren't that far off their previous season points total. Still, we hunt for this Champions League. They lost to Liverpool on penalties. A dramatic 90s this in the game. But doing alright in the Champions League, getting through pretty good in the league as well. Through in the Carabao Cup quarter-final, this is a long unbeaten run. Beat United 2-0 in the Carabao Cup semi-final and got through to another Carabao Cup final. Defeat to West Ham and to Monaco in the Champions League, but did manage to take the Carabao Cup on penalties with 10 men as well. They had a 2-0 lead before those goals came back, so great position for Liverpool there. And they did get knocked out by Monaco in the Champions League. Still going in the FA Cup though, and you can see through in the semi-final against Villa, and in the final beaten by who else but Liverpool. And that rivalry continues to tick along. Now we're getting to the end of the century now, and they're beaten by Liverpool in the Community Shield, of course. I'm pretty sure Liverpool won the league that season as well. If we go forward, they did indeed, just 2 points in it with Fair Warp. But you can see lost the Community Shield as well. Champions League doing okay, a few defeats at the start of the season, but then they keep getting a long unbeaten streak at the most difficult time in the season as well. But knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Liverpool, 3-2 defeat in both legs, and out of the FA Cup by Liverpool as well. A really poor run of 6 straight defeats in all competitions. But they recovered for the Champions League, won 3-1 and then 3-0 into the quarterfinals. Lost 2-0 to Juventus, but then won 3-0 at home. So they're into the semi-finals for only the second time. Beat Real Madrid 2-0 at home, and in the return leg 2-2. So they're into the Champions League final. If they're playing Liverpool again, this is going to be a shocker. And in the Champions League final, they did win 2-0 against Bayern Munich. They are the champions of Europe. It's taken 80 years, give or take, but they have finally managed to make it all the way to champions of Europe. And that season, the centenary year, they did miss out on the title by 1 point to Liverpool, but they managed to get them back by winning the Champions League. So that has finally happened for them. And the next season, the most recent season, if we go to the bottom here, you can see they won the Community Shield against Liverpool on penalties and the UEFA Super Cup as well. Doing okay in the league through to the FIFA Club World Cup final, which they won 9-0 with a double hat-trick for Sal Fabra. Now in the Carabao Cup, they did make it to another final, which they won against Liverpool 3-2. Ian Chapman with a 120th minute winner. And then in the knockout stages, they did manage to get through against Juventus there with a 4-1 aggregate win. Beat Barcelona as well, 4-0. through in the semi-final of the FA Cup, drew with Liverpool away, and then at home they won 3-1, so they're into another Champions League final. And if we go to the bottom, they've still got to play it against Bayern Munich. I haven't gone far enough ahead. We're a week out from seeing that Champions League final, and if they manage to win it, I will go ahead and resolve that before the end of this episode. But as you can see, if we go to the competition screen for Fair Up, Champions League winners in the year 2100, 3 Premier League titles, FIFA Club World Cup, 4 Europa Leagues, 3 UEFA Super Cups, 5 FA Cups, and 5 Carabao Cups as well. Championship thrown in there for good measure. They have won a lot of trophies. If we go to their records screen as well, most goals in a season, Fabra getting 40, but there's a lot of goals there from this Puyakov guy. Is he still at the club? This is going to take a long time to load. I probably shouldn't have clicked on that, but you can see he is still at the club, banging in the goals. £32 million signing, real prolific scorer. Grosso appearing there a lot as well. Not as many goals back then, but since their real success, they have been doing well. If we look at their overview for stats, you can see their highest league position is now Champions of England. 125 points they got in one season, 7 points they got in another one, but 43 defeats in that same season as well. Highest attendance 52,000, gate receipts 2.46 million, biggest win 9-0, and highest transfer fee paid. They did pay £100 million for a player. 331 games, won in a row over a 9-year period. They also went 495 games. They went 13 years without losing a single match. They did also go 36 games losing in a row and 38 games without winning. And they went 33 games without conceding as well. Oldest goal scorer, 37 years. Player of the match, Kieran Scott. All kinds of records here. Most assists, 41. And most goals in a season was Puyakov. 490 appearances for Antonio Pulic, who I assume is still playing. No, he has retired now after 490 games for Fair Whoop. Retired as a player at 37 back in 91, or he retired in 93. Can we see their best 11? We can see their best 11. So this is the most appearances, essentially. They've still got Keziah Sterling up front. You might remember him from earlier episodes. He's now joined by Puyakov, who has 359 goals, club's record goal scorer. 604 appearances for Miguel Bessa as well. So this is a team that stretches across 100 years now. They really have built up a history and do look absolutely fantastic. They are just a brilliant team now, it's no doubt about that. Worldwide reputation, Champions League under their belt. And if we look at their senior squad, I'm sure there's a lot of money in it. They've got 59,922 stadium, huge amount of value in this team. A lot of players over £60 million. And their facilities look pretty decent as well. Searching for a site for a new stadium as well, with a planned capacity of 70,000. They're moving to another stadium. Be interested to know what that stadium is called, but obviously it could take some time before they get a new club. But you can see their facilities here, 1919, 1920 and 16. They have managed to improve all of those things as well. So Fair Whoop have come quite some way since we started. If we look at their transfer history recently as well, you can see why they've managed to win at the Champions League. Huge amounts of money being spent, because I was giving them so much year after year after year. 304 million spent this season, 2 players for nearly 100 million, and the season before that, a couple of seasons before that, huge amounts being spent again. They have spent absolutely billions on players. Even in the last 20-30 years, billions and billions have been spent by this club for 1 Champions League, 3 league titles. It could be another one soon. I do just want to have a look at the past winners of the Premier League. You can see it's been between Liverpool and Fair Whoop for the last 20 years maybe. I mean, Fair Whoop barely getting a sniff in. Liverpool the dominant team. But before that, it was Newcastle who went on. Look at this period of success for Newcastle, all the way through the 70s, through the 60s, way back to the 50s. So across the 50s, 60s and 70s, Newcastle unstoppable. including a few before that as well. And the big teams really falling away over time. It's Newcastle who were the absolute beasts. And if we look at their competition record, you can see they won 6 Champions League titles as well, 27 Premier League titles. Can you imagine being a Newcastle fan in this reality? 23 FA Cups, 6 Super Cups, 3 Europa Leagues as well. They are just a fantastic club. 80,000 seater stadium now. If we look at their best 11 as well, that'd be an interesting thing. Quite a lot of good performances in here. 2 players with 300 goals up front. This guy got 498. How is he not in the first team? I know it's based on average rating, but 498 club goals for Vittorio Amati. But a brilliant period of success for Newcastle. If we just look at their finances there, they're in a bit of trouble now, which might explain why they've fallen down so much, or could be because they've fallen down so much. But Newcastle, the really, really big team. If we just have a look at the Premier League table as well, you'll see the likes of Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, now mid-table teams. Where's Man City actually? That's Man United. Man City are up in third. So the big teams sort of dropping down a bit. I can only show you the Championship because the game has crashed every time I've tried to load back in any more leagues. It just cannot handle the new amount, the huge amount of data that it would have to generate over that 100-year period. So I just can't load back in any previous leagues. I mean, look how long the Championship is taking to load. But if we go to the stages screen for this and look at the league table, these are the teams in the Championship right now. There's not too many surprises in there. A few surprising clubs. Dagenham and Redbridge we saw before were very impressive in how quickly they managed to get up there. But the real story of this is that rivalry between Fairhope and Liverpool, and the fact that they have won a Champions League title. Now I am going to go ahead just a week so that we can see if they do win the Champions League title. So I'll see you in just a moment. Well, I have now gone 1 week ahead to this Champions League final, and if we scroll down towards the bottom here for that game against Bayern Munich, you can see after overcoming Liverpool, their arch rivals, in the semi-finals with a 3-1 home win. They got to the final against Bayern Munich after winning the FA Cup, after winning the Premier League. Can they do the treble? Oh, it's an 89th minute defeat to Bayern Munich. 2 injuries to their players as well won't have helped, but they were beaten there 1-0 by Bayern Munich in the final, which means that they have missed out on a second Champions League title. Bayern Munich dominant in recent time. Liverpool racking up the Champions League titles before that. Spurs got 3 in a row. PSG got 3 in a row. Newcastle with a few in here, which I love seeing. Man City got 4 in a row, to be fair. Were there any other long periods of success? No, the 4 in a row by City, the most impressive. Liverpool getting a huge number of wins. And Newcastle getting a few as well, which is so nice to see. So that is pretty much everything that's happened. I will just have, out of interest, a quick look at the World Cup. Where you can see Bulgaria have recently won a World Cup. Germany with a few. England won it in 2046, so we've got that to look forward to. But it doesn't even go back to 2018. That's how far ahead we are now. France won the latest World Cup and are the next hosts as well. I will also just have a quick look at the Golden Ball as well. So you can see if any Fairhope players have managed to win this in recent time. Few for Liverpool. But it doesn't look like Fairhope have ever managed to get anything here. It's the standard clubs that you would expect. 3 for Middlesbrough recently though, which is quite interesting. This Jeroen Dijk for Holland has managed to win it. So I think that will probably be it for this experiment. As you can see, Fairhope in the last 2 Champions League finals, having missed out one and lost to Liverpool back in 1992, they have at least managed to win that and some Premier League titles. It's been a huge journey for us to get to this point. I've never had to sim this far into the future to achieve a pretty simple goal, and it's never cost me probably over £100 billion to do it either. It's not that much. It's probably more like 40 billion, I would guess, the number of times I had to change the editor data, but we have finally achieved it and we can finally move on to another experiment. So if you have enjoyed this very long experiment, do drop a like on the video. Let me know what your favorite highlight was of this series in the comments as well, and do hit that subscribe button if you want to see my next experiment, which I have already started on and I'm looking forward to showing you. But until next time, see ya.